The 100 episode 2 Earth Scales. Now, coming off the series premiere, this episode does follow up fairly well, I'd say. It gives a couple more plot points. Not too many, but it gives a few plot points. It does dive into some of the plot points we were given from the first episode, and I'd say so far, even though it's only the second episode, this series is carrying on fairly well. And unfortunately, we don't get a lot about who the new people are, or well, I guess I can't say new people, but who the humans are or human like creatures are on Earth. But we do get the little clip of them at the very end, and we do see a couple of little hints about what their technology may or may not be like. Of course, they have spears, so they aren't really technologically advanced as far as cameras and TVs and things like that, of course. But they do have spears. They know how to use them really well, as it was mentioned in this episode. The character Jasper in last week's episode was hit with a spear with pinpoint accuracy from like 300 feet away, I believe the character said. And I hadn't considered that at first. I just thought, someone threw a spear, it hit the guy. That was kind of the point. But that was really far, so they could have, you know, a ton of training because they have to defend themselves from these crazy creatures like, two-headed deer and giant eels in the water, and also giant black panthers. I guess that's what it looked like, at least. Giant, technically black cougar, but whatever. So it was cool that we got those little hints here and there, and at the end we got to see an actual person in the tree. Because I unfortunately had to watch it on my laptop, I had no idea what the person looked like. I just saw like these little pieces, so I don't know if that was their face. I'm assuming it was some sort of weird mask, but it was so dark on my screen, I just could not tell. I couldn't get all the details out of it. I just saw like little bits and pieces were like kind of sticking out a little, so it was some weird mask. But they're watching the people, and they also pointed out another little fact that the mountain, or I was gonna think of the name, but I don't know it. But the mountain that they were going to, that's across the river, is for some reason off bounds, and that's why Jasper wasn't attacked, or none of the characters have been attacked so far until Jasper was the first person to go across, and he was hit with the spear, and he was also healed because either they were trying to trap the other kids that are on Earth now, or they were trying to see what other things we can attract to this point. But odds are they were trying to get some more of the kids to see what are these kids like, how do they communicate, how do they act around each other, how are they, you know, interacting with the planet itself. And obviously that's a part of why the person's in the tree watching them eat at night, because they have to see what are we dealing with and who are we dealing with coming, from the stars. I mean, I'm sure they saw them, this giant ship crash on the planet, so there are a lot of different aspects. Who knows if they've evolved? Like, there were bones in this episode, and the head was a little different than a human head. It was fairly different, but they're obviously humanoid creatures. That could have been, since it's bones, it could have easily been picked clean by an animal or something, or it could have just been really old bones. But we'll have to wait and see until we really get some information on these people. But based on the trailers, we do have scenes that take place in these weird little villages that these people have created, where they either capture one of the main characters, or a group of the characters goes into this camp. And I remember one of the images I saw from one of the trailers was Jasper, and he had like a machine gun and stuff. So I don't know where that comes into play, but I am excited to see how they get weapons, and if it's because they finally get to the mountain, they find some way to get across without being killed, or what exactly it is. But as far as the Earth storyline goes, definitely well done. And of course, they put more focus on the rules, of which there are some, but somehow there are none. They put that focus in, and it was really cool to see that at the end of this episode, and also in the beginning where um, I don't know any of the characters' names at this point, but the Chancellor's son, he takes the time and he actually fights against the guy who's basically just like the second in command, douchebag type of guy. And so he fights him in the knife fight, and he's about to win, which I actually enjoyed. I thought, he has some actual skills, which was cool. And also his leg clearly healed, because otherwise he wouldn't be charging at this guy. But they established the fact that there are rules, and then at the end of the episode, when they're talking about you have to take off your bracelet in order to eat, the one of the main characters, he takes a stand and says, I thought there weren't any rules, and so he just takes food. And of course, the guy who's trying to be a leader, he punches like the random extra guy who tries to come in and knocks him out. So I thought that was kind of funny because he's trying to make a point, of course, but there's going to be some turmoil in there. And he also makes a very serious point against one of the people he actually told to protect his sister, because that guy ended up kissing his sister. So as he said, I will not be disobeyed. So that was interesting that he just strung that guy up in the tree. It was like, it doesn't matter what my sister may or may not want. I said no one touches my sister, and you did, so now you're in a tree. Curious to see how that might play out. He'll probably be dead. Who knows? But curious to see how that plays. And also, we got a new character in this episode, Raven, and the only reason I remember her is because I like Teen Titans. So I'm going to remember her name is Raven. But we find out, she's actually a very special character in this show because she's the youngest, I can't think of what it is, it's like space tech engineer or whatever, in 52 years. And Clark's mother actually says, I need you to fix this ship so that I can go down to Earth, which was an amazing point. I hope it actually happens, but odds are it won't, and they'll figure something out. But they have 10 days, well, 9 days now, because they had their vote to say, we'll either tell these 200 people to basically give up their lives, or we put all of our faith into this project. And since the chancellor, abstained from giving a vote, they have the 10 days before the vote has to be cast again. So I'm excited to see how that plays out and how Raven and Clark's mother actually come together as characters, and just to see whether or not they get down to Earth. And I'm curious as to who Raven's boyfriend is on Earth. I think it could be the guy who's called Spacewalker all the time, and that was just because he made the little aluminum foil two-headed deer for Clark, and then it instantly went to the Raven. But I think, that wasn't like aluminum foil, that was just an actual necklace. But it could have been him. He could have made it somehow, I don't know. But he could be, her boyfriend. I would assume it has to be one of the main characters, otherwise they'd just be adding someone else. But there are a lot of other plot points in. Jasper's best friend, whose name of course I can't remember, he's trying to contact the Ark because he's one of the smartest people on the show, and he won't be able to do it. I don't think he's going to have that chance for a very long time, until they find some random piece of technology from when people were first on Earth or something like that. But at this point, the bracelets aren't able to do anything, because once they're taken off, they pretty much just die out. So he's not able to do anything yet, but I think he'll be working on something, and he'll probably figure something out himself. But I like that they added that in, and it was a little bit of the episode. Like, there's a character working on this on Earth, and there are obviously people working on it on the Ark. So at some point, they're gonna have at least like 1 second worth of communication, and suddenly that'll be enough to say, hey, Earth is good to go. But really excited to see how things play out in this show. Excited to see really how things work on the Ark, because I remember in one of the trailers there were a ton of people passed out. So I don't know if the guy who's trying to take over the Chancellor's position, if he's gonna do something basically illegal and out of bounds, or if they eventually come to a decision that the Chancellor says, hey, we have to get rid of like 320 people because it's 10 people each day. And they either, I don't know how they're going to do that. I don't know if they're going to have people say, I surrender myself, or if they just choose people who aren't really worth it, which is probably how it's going to go. Like, you don't, contribute enough to the Ark, you're getting killed, basically. So I'm curious to see how all the little plot points work out. But the little political stuff that happens on the Ark is very interesting, especially with the fact that anything, if anyone gets caught doing anything illegal, technically they can just be killed off, aside from the Chancellor himself, giving someone a full pardon. They can get killed off, just for stealing. So I'm curious to see how some of these things are going to play out. But overall, I think the show's going fairly well. I love the preview for the next episode, because it's ironically, this one was Earth Skills, the next one is Earth Kills, and it focuses on like this storm coming in that's basically a radiation storm. So I'm really curious to see how they survive that, and also what parts of Earth we get to see next, because they haven't explored too much in this episode. It was mostly character based episode, and not really, hey, let's find this area and that area. We got a waterfall and like the tree where Jasper was hung up at, but that was really about it. But I'm excited to see what other things we get to see, I guess, in next week's episode, and also just how they survive this storm and who doesn't survive this storm. It'll probably be extras, but I am very curious to see how that affects all the characters now that they realize, we can only survive this Earth if we bond together. But I'm sure that won't work out until maybe like episode like 5 or 6 before they finally decide we shouldn't just be, you know, throwing caution to the wind and trying to do whatever we want and just be leaders and be crazy. But love the episode, love the series so far. Comment below, let me know what you guys saw this episode, favorite parts, least favorite parts, and tell me what you guys think of the show so far. We've only had 2 episodes, of course. Like I said, episode 3 is going to be based on storms and how the world is very different than it used to be with like radiation storms. I would assume it looked like a gas cloud almost was just moving in to kill everyone. But how do you guys think this show is going so far? Are you guys interested? Not interested? Did they get you in the first episode, lose you in this one, or did you guys give it a chance and then it got you in this one? I don't know. Comment below, let me know either way. And thanks for watching.